they call the social credit system. If any of these family photos, if any of your activities online, if your purchases, if your associations, if your friends are in any way different from what the government or the powers that be of the moment would like them to be, you're no longer able to purchase train tickets. You're no longer able to board an airplane. You may not be able to get a passport. You may not be eligible for a job. You might not be able to work for the government. All of these things are increasingly being created and programmed and decided by algorithms. And those algorithms are fueled by precisely the innocent data that our devices are creating all of the time, constantly, invisibly, quietly, right now. Our devices are casting all of these records that we do not see being created, that in aggregate seem very innocent. You were at Starbucks at this time. You went to the hospital afterwards. You spent a long time at the hospital. After you left the hospital, you made a phone call. You made a phone call to your mother. You talked to her until the middle of the night. The hospital was an oncology clinic. Even if you can't see the content of these communications, the activity records, what the government calls metadata, which they argue they do not need a warrant to collect, tells the whole story. And these activity records are being created and shared and collected and intercepted constantly by companies and governments. And ultimately it means as they sell these, as they trade these, as they make their businesses on the backs of these records, what they are selling is not information. What they're selling is us. They're selling our future. They're selling our past. They are selling our history, our identity, and ultimately they are stealing our power and making our stories work for them.
This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yashar Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Wakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwat who are believing this word, in all truth and in sincerity. All right, I'd like to go into a lesson based on the clip that you just saw of Edward Snowden, all right, who was a whistleblower about, I forget about how many years ago, but he first became famous or well known for whistleblowing that the United States government was spying on citizens. All right, now the point that he brought out speaks to this verse in particular, as well as the following verses. All right, because the mark of the beast comes with a system. All right, a system is being set in place first, with the mark of the beast being the RFID microchip. All right, being the final touch, if you will. All right, this is why the data centers are going up. This is why there's such an investment in artificial intelligence. All right, and what he highlighted, which was extremely important concerning prophecy, is that this system is already present in China. All right, and we'll deal with that according to prophecy as well. All right, so we're now living in the time where, as the scriptures say, as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Now, I want to go into this word in particular. All right. And in the Greek, it's apokteno. All right. It says to kill in any way, whatever. Now, when you deal with the root word of killed, the Greek word for killed, apokteno, is apo. All right. And it's of separation. All right. And I always use the analogy of the day and age when debit cards did not have a chip in them. All right. It was just a slide debit card, you know, where you had to slide it. Well, eventually they started bringing out the chip machines, and they started offering the chip card as an upgrade. But eventually they got to a point where you could no longer use your debit card that had no chip in it to access your money. So they started with gradualism. They started with slowly implementing machines that took chips, and they still had the magnet swipe. So you had options. And then the banks would offer you a chip card in the mail and tell you to activate this one instead of using your old debit card. Well, eventually your card stopped working, and the banks required you to upgrade. Not only that, if you went into the gas stations, if you went into the grocery stores, you no longer had the ability to swipe your debit card anymore in a lot of places. so it became inconvenient. That's an example of, as the system grows and it matures and it becomes mandatory, if you don't participate, you're locked out of the system. All right. Now I want to continue in Revelation, the 13th chapter. It says in verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, see, this is how it leads up to this. All right. Because, again, he talked about the social credit system. And in order for that to be possible, they have to close all gateways. They have to close all exit routes. It's a digital besiegement, if you will, because once everything is integrated into a digital interface, a cashless interface, where all of your interactions and your transactions can be tracked, then they can send AI in as a taskmaster to watch over the entire system and enforce it autonomously. And this is why he brought up the point of, if your narrative is against what this system agrees with, then you're going to be killed in one form or another, meaning you'll be physically put to death or you'll be locked out of the system or outcasted. All right. Matter of fact, because what's being spoken on the highways and hedges, beginning with our elder apostles, is not lies. It's the truth. It's the truth of this system. And everybody knows that. It's the elephant in the room. And see, what has happened is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has lost the narrative. He's lost the ability to control the narrative, because truth is now sprung forth. So now he has to enforce lies. All right. He has to enforce it now. It's no longer just a popular narrative that he can just kind of convince people that he's the good guy. Now he has to enforce lies with punishment and with brutal force, with violence. Whether it's physical violence or economic violence, it's violence all the same. And I say that to say that this brings us to prophecy. This is where we're headed concerning prophecy. All right. And it's nothing shocking to those who understand this truth. All right. Real quick, is Isaiah 59:15. Yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. Because the Lord is watching, and he's witnessing the so-called white man rule with wickedness. Now that the truth is coming out and you can't argue with the truth, you're just going to create a system and lock out anybody who doesn't believe your lies anymore. That's the level he's been reduced to. This is why he has to come down with great wrath. Because when the sword of the tongue doesn't work, he goes back to his primary weapon, which is the sword of violence. And economic violence is a form of violence. I say that often because our people equate violence with physical harm. But the so-called white man has many ways of inflicting violence, not only on us as a nation of people, but other nations. A perfect example is the sanctions of other nations, the freezing of a government's assets. They froze the Russian assets because the Russians didn't agree. They weaponized the dollar. That's a form of violence. Even the wording, weaponizing the dollar. So now he's pushing this society, Babylon the Great, which is America, all right, to this digital interface so that he can have control. All right. Now, another point Edward Snowden made was that this system is likened unto what is already going on in China. All right. And even though China and the USA on paper are enemies, they're both pushing the same agenda. And that's no coincidence, because the elites are behind both sides. They funded all wars on both sides of the wars because this is how they make money. They're transnational, meaning they don't identify with a nation, one particular nation. They're not loyal to any nation. When I say nation, I'm talking about the United States, Britain, London. They're not loyal to any of those interests. They're only loyal to their own. All right. And China has been able to roll out this beast system. And this goes back to the scriptures. All right. Let's get it. This is 2nd Esdras, chapter 15:46. And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person. Because all China did was take the blueprint of the USA, their geopolitical agenda, even their building structures. All they did was take that blueprint all right, and applied to their own system. So they took the blueprint of Babylon and made their self like unto her. All right, continuing, it says, and art the glory of her person. Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, right? That they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith Yahweh Shem Yahushai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee. Meaning the Lord is going to punish the Moabites, which are the so-called Chinese, just as harshly as the other nations. All right. Because Esau Edom is the head of the Confederacy, but these other nations were in league with him. And even now, as we look at this modern age, China is still fashioning herself after the hope of Babylon. Everything that these elites want America to be, China is already. You can't speak against the government. If this system was already set up in the United States, this truth wouldn't have got out, which is why the Lord put the spirit on the so-called white man to have the Constitution and to have free speech, because it allowed this truth to go across the whole world via the unicorn, which is the internet. And now the gospel has been preached unto the ends of the earth. And this is why the Lord is putting the spirit on the so-called white man to close this system, to go ahead and enforce and close this system and start censoring speech, which is going to lead into the famine of the word. All right, this Proverbs 21:1. All right, and it reads, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. All right, and I brought this out to say that none of these leaders, their ideas are not their own. All right, all of this is pushing us toward prophecy. And this is why Edward Snowden's grave announcement is no shock to us, because the Lord already told us these things from the beginning. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. All right, this is Isaiah 46. And I'm going to jump down to verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am power and there is none else. I am power and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. So the Lord told us from the beginning, before America was even a thing, the Lord told us that a system would come up, a rulership would come up, a beast would come up out of the sea. And if you don't worship that beast, you're going to be killed. Meaning, if you don't submit to this system and take that RFID chip, you're going to be removed out of this system, either physically or economically. This is why the mark of the beast says that no man may buy or sell, meaning you can't participate anymore. All right. Even now, they're trying to put things in the books to where they can take your so-called citizenship if they deem you un-American, which means if you stand for truth, all right, and this place doesn't stand for truth. They don't want to talk about the legacy of how they became a nation of people. They want everybody to participate in the lie that they've ran across the world spreading. And now that the truth is starting to come out, they have to now change course and take their mask off and be the devil that we already knew they were. All right, this 2 Esdras 6:27. For evil shall be put out and deceit shall be quenched. And contrary to popular belief, this is an evil empire. All right. As much as they were advocates of free speech, they no longer are now that it doesn't suit them. And this is where the world is headed. And our people are sleeping. You know, Jake is doing TikTok dances and new trends and not even realizing the temperature in the room. All that street smarts and no spiritual awareness, man. All right, this 2 Esdras 6:28. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome. And the truth, which hath been so long without fruit, shall be declared. And that's what's happening. And it's all spiritual. That's why these things don't come as a shock to us. Because, again, this is how we get to salvation. We don't get there any other way. There's no way for us to achieve the rest that the Lord promised us. We have to go through this road. And the Lord warned us that this is what's going to happen. What we read in the scriptures, the Lord put the spirit on the elect to believe it as if it's already happening, even though it hasn't happened yet. So when these things begin to happen before our eyes, it really strengthens our faith more than anything, because it shows us that what the Lord said is being confirmed in our reality. That's why Edward Snowden's statement doesn't bring us any great fear or anxiety. It just makes us say, oh, yeah, the Lord said that right here. Oh, yeah. OK, so it's that time. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. It's time for us to get out of here. And again, through much tribulation, because being locked out of this system means we're going to be put in very straight conditions. Yet the Lord is going to deliver. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. All right. So Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.